product provided by Nintendo. I have 5 more quick tips for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. This is for when you're later in the game, you're starting to get into the grind of late game, and you may be going, Jmulls, there's so much to do. Let me help. Hello everybody, I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming. And step number 1, because all these tips flow into the next one, step 1, get to level 50. You don't really need to grind before this point, but just get to level 50, because that unlocks access to level 50 Skells. If you're struggling with leveling up, just fight enemies that are about 5 to 10 levels above you, which should be manageable if you follow my tips from this video, and you'll just rack in levels in XP. Just get to level 50. Step 2, you're gonna want to get a level 50 Skell. Go to Armory Alley in New LA and just save up your money and get a level 50 Skell. You can gear out the rest of your characters with these if you want. It's just important for you yourself to have a level 50 Skell. Once you have done that, you're going to go over to Silverloom. Now, besides being an absolutely gorgeous zone by itself, there's one particular famous farm spot here, and it's filled with Puges and Pugaliths. What you're going to do is you're just going to kill these guys. They should be around level 40, so they should absolutely be manageable. And you can even do this on your way to level 50 if you want. You're just going to kill these guys repeatedly because they can drop Skell weapons and just gear overall, but you're looking for 2 things: the Phoenix weapons and either the G Buster or the G2 Buster. Either one is good, but we're really looking out here for a Phoenix weapon. You can get lucky like I did and get it on your first kill, or it may take a little bit, but you're going to want these Phoenix weapons, and it's why you need the level 50 Skell, because these Phoenix weapons are only equipable by a level 50 Skell, at least in my experience. If you want to farm out Phoenixes for your other party members, you can do that, it's just not necessary. Next up, you're going to spec your actual Skell into thermal damage because Phoenix does thermal damage. It essentially pulses a thermal AoE around you that ticks 3 times, and it can do a lot of damage if you spec into it right, while also having a rather large area of effect. The goal is to kill a group of enemies with this with 1 press of the art. That's why you're specking into thermal damage on your Skell's gear for even more damage for Phoenix. Now, once you have done this, a lot of the actual grinding from here on out will be massively expedited. You won't remove it entirely, it's just it will become so much faster because you can just clear out groups of enemies that you need to kill for whatever grind you're doing almost immediately. And the final 2 tips for this video that I'll go into more detail about just involve what you can grind now with the tools you've accumulated at this point. Now, if you want class XP because you just want to fill out the class tree or whatever, heck, even XP kind of, there is a boss called Joker. He is level 90, but it's a bit of a deception. He is absolutely killable way earlier, like level 50 of 60. It's just he has high evasion. But the goal for this farm, if you want class XP, isn't to kill Joker. He is surrounded by a bunch of mobs. You're just gonna go there, pop Phoenix, and if that doesn't kill all the enemies around Joker, you'll just do some other kind of AoE. You can get out of your Skell if you want. And once those mobs are dead, you'll gain a bunch of class XP. I went from rank 1 Partisan Eagle to rank 6 Partisan Eagle in less than a minute with this method. And then 6 to 8 when I did another run of it. It is super quick. So if you just want to get access to a bunch of different skills and arts to make whatever build you want, this is a pretty dang fast method when you're at this point in the game. Because you can also just like fly out. The fast travel node is like right next to this place. Teleport there again, all the ads spawn back in, and you just rinse and repeat repeatedly. Next up, we're going to talk about support missions, because these are some of the most powerful things this game offers you in terms of just expediting most of the grinds in this game. Because Xenoblade X can be an incredibly grindy game, and while you're not going to remove all of those elements, if you want to interface with a lot of the high-level stuff in this game, you can just make it go by a lot faster, and support missions are like this game's answer to that. There's different kinds. You just go to the online terminal in your barracks to have access to these things. You can do actual online missions with other players, which are pretty relatively straightforward, by the way. They're just killing groups of enemies. Those give you material tickets that you can exchange for different, well, materials. I'm saving mine up so I can get an Ares 90 Skell, which is a really powerful endgame Skell when I get there. But if you go to the material market in your main menu, you can buy so many different things for these items. But regular support missions, well, you can do the mission that gives you 360 affinity affinity a run, and with the Phoenix method, you just have to kill 3 waves of enemies, and sometimes they'll all just get one-shot by the Phoenix. So you can have that support mission done in like less than a minute, collect 360 affinity, and just spam it with all your different party members to get the affinity you need to go do affinity missions. If you're running low on Moranium and you don't just want to AFK while your game like auto-farms it for you, there's a support mission you can do around this point in the game that gives you not only 300,000 money, credits, whatever, but also 30k Moranium. And just like the Affinity one, it's really quick. Heck, this one is arguably faster because there's only 2 groups of enemies. And even if you don't end up one-shotting the enemies with Phoenix, either on your feet or just with your other Skell weapons, you can probably kill them. It's super quick, and you'll never really have to worry about waiting around for Moranium again. There's also other support missions that give you like BP and stuff like that. I haven't really ever felt the need to use them, but they are there if you need them. Xenoblade X can be a very complex game if you want it to be. There's a lot of depth and complexity to its various systems, and they can be rather intimidating on a surface level, but the more you're willing to put into the game to try and understand how they all work, the more you can get out of it. And I think it's part of the charm of Xenoblade X. Like, sure, I'm certain there's a few farm spots you can probably do for a lot of XP or stuff like that, but generally speaking, if you just fight enemies that are 5 to 10 levels above you, which is more than manageable if you build a decent build, you'll gain a ton of experience. Like a lot. More than you think. For me, it was only taking like 2 to 3 mob kills sometimes to go up a level. And there's so many little things about Xenoblade X you may just not realize initially, even if the game tells you, just because there's so much information to digest in this game. And I think a good little example of this is the FrontierNav. It is very easy to like get overwhelmed here and go, oh, well, I have research probes, I have mining nodes, I have mining probes, whatever. I have so many different things that can mix and match here. How do I min-max the system? Oh, I want these resources that some of these nodes can give, like FN Site 109 gives you Fulcultium, Dawnstone, and Linebone Bort. Maybe you want those resources, maybe you don't. And there's another thing you have to consider when it comes to just putting down probes on the map. If you connect the same type of probe to each other, they give you a buff for doing that. So if I want a ton of storage limit, I should put down a bunch of storage probes right next to each other on nodes that connect to each other, because I'll gain like a 30% buff if it's 3 of them, or a 50% buff if there's 5 of them. And later in the game, you're going to want a lot of storage limit, because the Moranium cost for various things will start to go up and up and up, so you need to make sure you can actually accrue that amount. I'm pretty sure the Ares 90, for instance, which is that late-game Skell I was talking about earlier, requires about 100,000 Moranium. It's not hard to get there, it's just you kind of need to understand how to put down probes, which isn't the most complicated thing in the world. You just put down similar probes, or the same type of probe next to each other. And this one comes from my own experience. I had to learn this one myself. The attribute of your weapons changes the attribute of the damage you're doing. For whatever reason, I had worked under the assumption that, say, longswords did physical damage because, well, it's a freaking sword, and then something like a photon saber would do ether damage because it's a lightsaber. Duh. However, that's not the case. If you look at the actual weapon you have equipped, it'll tell you. It's a lot of information, so you may just not read it, kind of like I did. That's why I'm here. You can look at my weapon, the Ultra Ceramic Spatha. The attribute is ether. So this changes what my longsword aughts do. You can see the attribute for my aughts, True Stream Edge, Ultra Slash, and Rising Blade don't do physical damage because my sword is an ether weapon. So if I had a bunch of skills equipped that did additional physical damage, my longsword is not benefiting from that. So it would make more sense for me to now equip skills that buff my ether damage because that's the main type of damage that I'm doing. So I have this skill, Core Crusher. Ether attribute attacks cannot damage enemy appendages, but they deal an extra 150% primary damage when targeting them. It comes from Psycorruptor, going back to a previous tip I gave you in this video. If you want to grind up a bunch of class XP quickly, you can if you just want to get a build online immediately. So it's like, I'm not using Psycorruptor as a class, but I wanted that skill, so I leveled it up. But since my weapon is doing ether damage, I'm not going to take skills that increase my physical damage because that's not the type of damage I'm primarily targeting. So I took something like Core Crusher, which just gives me a ton of ether damage. And also, don't forget, you can augment your Skell itself. and the weapons you have equipped. I threw on a draw opening damage 18 onto my Phoenix weapon, which boosts my Skell opening art damage by 90%. And I just stacked a bunch of thermal damage onto my gear for my Skell, and then I just threw on whatever for my Skell itself, because you can augment and add effects to the Skell frame itself. Mine aren't particularly good, but like, you can do it. And this isn't to show you the best way to go about doing things in Xenoblade X. This is to show you just how, with a little bit of investment and thinking about things just a little bit more than you would think you would have to, just how much you can benefit from taking advantage of all these various systems that Xenoblade X has to offer. Xenoblade X is an RPG, so trying to understand its various systems and its various ways to augment your character can be incredibly powerful. For instance, if you want to get a bunch of item drops for whatever reason, why not equip gear that gives you additional item drops? Invest in Candid Incredible, the arms manufacturer, and then you can just get gear with treasure sensor on it that boosts the item drop rate. So if you're farming really good weapons from Joker, who, funnily enough, the guy from earlier in this video, yeah, if you can kill that boss, he drops some of the best weapons in the entire game. So if you're going to kill him anyways, why not equip a bunch of gear that gives you even more items? It's one of the mindsets I had to kind of work myself out of, because a lot of the times when it comes to games, I like to just pick something and largely stick with it. But like, Xenoblade X is a game that rewards and incentivizes you to mix and match, to swap things out based on what is called for in that situation. Do you want more item drops? Equip treasure sensor gear. Do you want a bunch of XP? There's XP increased gear you can get. You are incentivized to play around with different party members to level up their affinity so that you can do their affinity quests, because they're rather fun and cool and give you a bunch of cool story for various characters around Mira and just fleshing out and developing this world. You don't have to interface with that system if you don't want to, but these things are there for your benefit. That's the thing with Xenoblade X. You can choose to really make use of a lot of its systems and you can enjoy the game that way. But even if you don't, sure, some things may take a little bit longer, but you can still kind of play however you want. I think that's the charm of Xenoblade X in a lot of ways, and with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It'd really help the channel out and help support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day, go play some Vita games. Leave a comment down below with your own tips for Xenoblade X, or any questions you have. I'd love to hear thoughts, hear opinions, and hear perspectives. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody, until we meet again.